Money to Burn by Janson Davies. Chapter 1. Ashes to Ashes. Gary Eubanks stared at the eviction notice taped to his apartment door like it was a death sentence. The ink bled slightly from the morning dew, but the message was clear. He had 72 hours to vacate. He didn't need that long. There wasn't much left to pack. Inside the apartment was a mausoleum of failed dreams. A broken coffee maker sat on the counter like a monument to better mornings. The couch had springs that poked through the fabric like bones. His fridge hummed with the energy of a dying animal, containing only a half-empty bottle of mustard and a single slice of stale bread. Gary sat on the edge of his mattress, no frame, just foam on the floor, and stared at his phone. No messages, no missed calls. Just a blinking notification reminding him that his prepaid minutes were about to expire. He had 37 cents in his checking account and a credit score that could legally be classified as a cry for help. He'd lost his job 2 weeks ago. Downsizing, they said. Nothing personal, his manager had offered, not even bothering to look him in the eye. Gary had worked there for 9 years. He didn't even get a severance package, just a cardboard box and a pat on the back that felt more like a shove. His car, a 1998 Honda Civic with a cracked windshield and a missing hubcap, had been repossessed the day after. He'd watched from his window as the tow truck hauled it away, the driver whistling like he was doing God's work. Gary had tried to laugh, tried to tell himself it was just a rough patch. But the patch had turned into a canyon, and he was falling fast. He'd called his stockbroker, more out of habit than hope. The man answered with his usual line, "I'm sorry for your loss." Gary wondered if the guy had ever considered a career in homicide. He had the tone down cold. Gary thought about suicide. Not seriously. He was afraid of heights and couldn't afford a gun. Even the pills in his medicine cabinet were expired. He'd Googled painless ways to die and ended up on a forum where people debated the ethics of toaster baths. It was oddly comforting. At least someone out there was thinking about the same things. He spent the afternoon walking aimlessly through the city. The sidewalks felt like conveyor belts, moving him forward without purpose. He passed people in suits, people in rags, people talking to themselves and people pretending not to hear. He was invisible, a ghost with a heartbeat. At sunset, he returned home and sat in the dark. No electricity, no candles, just the glow of his phone screen and the sound of distant traffic. Then, just as the minutes were about to run out, the phone rang. Gary stared at the number. Unknown. He hesitated, then answered. "Mr. Eubanks," a voice said, smooth, confident, like silk over steel. "Yes," Gary replied, unsure whether to be hopeful or afraid. "I'm calling about a job opportunity, one you may have forgotten applying for." Gary blinked. "I don't remember applying for anything." "No matter. The offer still stands. I'd like to meet you. In person." "Where?" The voice gave him an address, a neighborhood Gary had only seen in magazines. Then, as if reading his mind, the voice added, "Take the number 14 bus. It stops right in front. I assume you no longer have a vehicle." Gary didn't respond. The voice chuckled softly. "Tomorrow morning, 10 sharp. Don't be late." The line went dead. Gary stared at the phone. The screen dimmed. 30 seconds of talk time left. He had no idea what he'd just agreed to, but it was something. And something was better than nothing. He lay back on the mattress and stared at the ceiling. The cracks looked like constellations. He traced them with his eyes, imagining they led somewhere, anywhere but here. Outside, the city kept moving. Inside, Gary Eubanks waited for morning. Chapter 2. The Invitation. Gary woke before dawn, not because he was eager, but because sleep had become a luxury he could no longer afford. His dreams were filled with static, flickering images of falling elevators, burning money, and a voice that kept repeating, "Don't be late." He dressed in the only suit he owned. It was 2 sizes too big and smelled faintly of mothballs and desperation. He straightened his tie in the cracked mirror, then stared at his reflection. He looked like a man auditioning for a role he didn't understand. The bus ride was long and quiet. Gary sat near the back, clutching a folder filled with his resume and a few letters of recommendation from people who were either dead or disgraced. The city blurred past the window, graffiti, pawn shops, and fast food joints slowly giving way to manicured lawns and wrought iron gates. When the bus stopped, Gary stepped off and stared. The mansion loomed like a cathedral of wealth. White stone columns flanked the entrance, and a fountain in the shape of a lion spewed water into a marble basin. The hedges were trimmed into spirals, and the driveway was so clean it looked polished. Gary hesitated. He felt like a trespasser in a dream. He walked up the steps and rang the bell. The door opened silently. A butler stood there, tall and expressionless, dressed in black with white gloves. He didn't speak. He simply turned and gestured for Gary to follow. Inside, the mansion was colder than expected, not temperature-wise, emotionally. The walls were lined with portraits of people who looked vaguely familiar, as if they'd been famous in a parallel universe. The air smelled of incense and old paper. The butler led Gary to a parlor with velvet chairs and a fireplace that crackled without heat. A man sat in the center of the room, dressed in a white three-piece suit, white shoes, and a white tie. His hair was snow-white, his beard neatly trimmed, and his eyes were the color of polished emeralds. "Ah, Mr. Eubanks," the man said, rising to shake Gary's hand. "Right on time." "Good morning, mister," Gary asked, unsure whether to sit or run. "Mr. Cole," the man said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And I've called you here for a transaction, a quite lucrative one for you." Gary blinked. "Not a job?" "No, not a job. An exchange." Gary's stomach tightened. "What kind of exchange? I don't think I have anything you'd want." Mr. Cole chuckled. "Quite to the contrary, Mr. Eubanks. You have something I very much want." Gary sat down slowly. "And that is?" Mr. Cole leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Your soul, Mr. Eubanks. I want your soul." Gary stared at him, then laughed. "A nut. I spent the last of my money for bus fare to meet a nut. Please show me the way out." Mr. Cole didn't move. "Perhaps this will convince you I'm sincere in my offer." He reached up and brushed his hair back. 2 horns sprouted from his scalp, curling like ivory tusks. Gary's breath caught. "You're the devil?" Mr. Cole shrugged. "To your limited understanding of the universe, you can call me the devil. In actuality, I'm an alien visitor searching for new experiences." Gary blinked. "And pretending to be the devil and collecting souls is a new experience?" "Oh, yes," Mr. Cole said, pouring himself a glass of something that shimmered like liquid silver. "You see, I don't have a soul. None of my kind do. I'll be the first." Gary rubbed his temples. "And what do you offer in exchange?" Mr. Cole smiled. "How does a winning lottery scratcher sound? One worth $1 billion. There's no such scratcher worth that much. There will be tomorrow. They're releasing it in multiple states. And you're going to give me the scratcher ahead of time? Number. You're going to have to buy it yourself anywhere you choose, but it has to be sometime tomorrow for our transaction to be complete." Gary narrowed his eyes. "You'll take my soul tomorrow, I suppose? Number. You'll get the obligatory 7 years as per Earth custom. And if the scratcher I purchase isn't the $1 billion winner, then your soul is yours to keep." Mr. Cole extended his hand. "Agreed?" Gary hesitated. The room felt like it was holding its breath. He thought of his empty fridge, his repossessed car, his eviction notice. "Agreed," he said. They shook hands. The moment their palms touched, the fire in the hearth flared blue. The portraits on the walls blinked. A white marble bust whispered, "Sucker." And somewhere in the distance, a grandfather clock struck 13. Gary left the mansion with a strange feeling in his chest. Not hope, not fear, something in between. Chapter 3. The Devil Wears White. Gary didn't sleep that night. He sat in his apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over. The words, "your soul," echoed like a bad jingle he couldn't forget. He tried to convince himself it was a prank, a hallucination, a fever dream brought on by stress and hunger. But the handshake had felt real, too real. He remembered the fire turning blue, the blinking portraits, the clock striking 13. He remembered Mr. Cole's horns. At dawn, Gary walked to the nearest convenience store. The air was crisp, the sky a pale gray. He passed an old woman sitting on the sidewalk with a basket of kittens in her lap. Her sign read, "Please help," in shaky handwriting. Gary glanced at her, then looked away. "Maybe next time," he muttered, and hurried inside. The store smelled of burnt coffee and cheap air freshener. A line had already formed at the counter, people buying cigarettes, energy drinks, and scratchers. Gary tapped his foot, impatient. His last crumpled dollar bill felt like a relic in his pocket. When it was finally his turn, he handed over the bill and asked for a scratcher. The clerk gave him a ticket with a holographic sheen. "New release," he said. "They're calling it The Billionaire's Blessing." Gary took it to the side, heart pounding. He scratched the surface with a key. The numbers revealed themselves slowly, one by one. Then he froze. It was the winner. Gary stared at the ticket, unable to breathe. His hands trembled. He clutched it to his chest like it was a newborn child. He rushed home, locked the door, and sat on the floor. He read the instructions on the back. He checked the numbers again. It was real. He was a billionaire. He laughed. He cried. He imagined the life he would build: mansions, cars, travel, freedom. He imagined calling his old boss and telling him to shove it. He imagined never worrying about money again. That night he fell asleep with the ticket on his chest. When he woke up, it was gone. Gary sat up, panicked. He tore the apartment apart, checked under the mattress, behind the fridge, inside the toilet tank. Nothing. He retraced his steps from the day before, walked to the store, past the same old woman with the kittens. Same sign, same shaky handwriting. Inside the store, the same people stood in line. The same clerk handed him the same ticket. Gary scratched it. It was the winner. Again. He rushed home, waited, tried not to sleep. But sleep came anyway, and the ticket vanished. The next morning, the same events repeated. The same walk, the same woman, the same store, the same ticket, the same win. Gary felt like he was losing his mind. He returned to Mr. Cole's mansion. The butler let him in without a word. Mr. Cole sat in the parlor, smoking a cigar that smelled like cinnamon and sulfur. "The day keeps repeating itself," Gary shouted. "You cheated." Mr. Cole raised an eyebrow. "Cheated? How did I cheat? You got exactly what we agreed upon. You won the $1 billion scratcher." "But I can't collect the money." "That's a whole different transaction. We agreed you'd get the winning ticket." Gary's voice cracked. "But if the day keeps repeating itself, how are you going to collect my soul after 7 years?" Mr. Cole smiled. "Each day is cumulative. You have 2,554 winning days left. Congratulations." Gary collapsed into a chair. "You tricked me. I offered you a deal. You accepted. I kept my word." Gary tried to threaten. He tried to beg. He tried to renegotiate. Mr. Cole would not change the terms. "You're not the devil," Gary said. "You're worse." Mr. Cole chuckled. "I'm an alien. We don't have morality, just curiosity." Gary left the mansion in a daze. The world felt hollow, the sky too bright, the air too still. He was rich, infinitely rich, and completely trapped. Chapter 4. Scratch and Win. Gary stopped counting the days after the first dozen. Each morning began the same gray sky, the same cracked sidewalk, the same old woman with the kittens and the shaky sign. He no longer muttered, "Maybe next time." He simply walked past her like a ghost. Inside the store, the same clerk handed him the same ticket. Gary scratched it with the same key. The same billion-dollar win stared back at him. He didn't rush home anymore. He didn't laugh or cry or dream. He just walked back to his apartment, sat on the floor, and waited for sleep to steal the ticket again. The repetition dulled everything. Food lost its flavor. Music sounded like static. Even the thrill of winning faded into numbness. He tried to break the loop. He bought different tickets. They were all winners. He tried different stores. Same result. He tried skipping the purchase altogether. The day still reset. He tried staying awake for 48 hours. His body collapsed, and the ticket vanished. He tried burning the ticket. It reappeared the next day. He tried calling the lottery commission. The number didn't exist. He tried telling strangers. They laughed or walked away. He tried everything. Nothing worked. Gary began to wonder if he was dead, if this was some kind of purgatory designed specifically for him. A billionaire in a world that wouldn't let him spend a cent. He stopped shaving, stopped changing clothes, stopped pretending. He wandered the city like a sleepwalker, watching the same dog bark at the same squirrel, the same couple argue over the same parking spot, the same jogger trip over the same crack in the sidewalk. He memorized the rhythm of the day, the timing of the traffic lights, the exact moment the sun hit the corner of his building. He became a scholar of repetition. And yet, every morning he still walked to the store, still bought the ticket, still scratched it. He didn't know why. Maybe hope, maybe habit, maybe defiance. Maybe he just wanted to see if the universe would blink. One day he stood outside the store and stared at the old woman with the kittens. She looked up at him with tired eyes. Her sign trembled in the breeze. Gary knelt beside her. "Do you ever get tired of asking?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Do you ever get tired of winning?" Gary didn't answer. He bought the ticket, scratched it, won, went home, slept, woke up, repeated. The days passed like pages in a book he couldn't close. He was a billionaire, and he was broke. Chapter 5. Déjà Vu. Gary stood in front of the mirror and watched himself blink. It was the only thing that changed. His beard had grown unevenly, his eyes were bloodshot, and his suit, once a symbol of hope, now hung off him like a costume worn too long. He looked like a man who had lived 1,000 days in a single one. Because he had. The loop was perfect, immaculate, a cosmic joke with no punchline. Every morning the same sun rose, the same birds chirped, the same bus hissed past his apartment, the same old woman sat with her kittens, her sign trembling like a leaf in the wind. Gary had tried everything to break the cycle. He'd screamed in the streets, he'd smashed windows, he'd stolen cars, he'd confessed to crimes he hadn't committed. He'd even tried to kill himself, jumping in front of traffic, overdosing on expired pills, walking into the ocean. But the day always reset. No pain, no scars, no consequences, just the same damn scratcher. He began to question reality itself. Was he in a simulation, a dream, a punishment? He returned to Mr. Cole's mansion, desperate for answers. The butler let him in without a word. Mr. Cole sat in the parlor, smoking a cigar that smelled of rotted cabbage. His horns were gone, but his eyes still gleamed with inhuman clarity. "You again," Mr. Cole said, not looking up. "You're becoming a regular." Gary didn't sit. "Why is the day repeating?" Mr. Cole exhaled smoke shaped like spirals. "Because that's the nature of your transaction. You asked for a winning ticket. You got it. Every day. But I can't spend it. I can't escape. I can't live." Mr. Cole shrugged. "You didn't ask for freedom. You asked for wealth." Gary's voice cracked. "What's the point of being rich if I'm stuck in the same day?" Mr. Cole smiled. "That's the question, isn't it?" Gary paced the room. "You said you were an alien, that this was an experiment." "Correct. So what are you testing?" Mr. Cole leaned forward. "Human desire, the limits of greed, the elasticity of regret." Gary stared at him. "You're torturing me." "I'm observing you." Gary clenched his fists. "You said I had 7 years." "You do. 7 years of winning. 7 years of possibility." Gary laughed bitterly. "Possibility? I can't change anything. I can't help anyone. I can't even die." Mr. Cole's eyes flickered. "You can still choose. That's the only freedom that matters." Gary left the mansion in silence. That night he sat on the roof of his apartment and watched the stars. They looked different, brighter, closer, like they were watching him back. He thought about the old woman, the kittens, the sign. He thought about the ticket. He thought about what it meant to win and what it meant to lose. The next morning, the loop began again. Gary walked to the store, passed the woman, bought the ticket, scratched it. Won, went home, slept, woke, repeat. But something inside him had shifted. A question had taken root. What if the ticket wasn't the point? What if the choice was? Chapter 6. Terms and Conditions. Gary stopped scratching the ticket. He still bought it, ritual was hard to break, but he no longer cared about the numbers. He'd begun to see the loop not as a curse, but as a mirror. Every day reflected who he was, what he valued, and what he ignored. He started talking to the old woman. She never asked for anything, just smiled and let the kittens crawl over her lap like living clouds. Gary asked her name. She said it was Mercy. He asked why she sat there every day. "To remind people," she said. "Of what?" "That kindness is always an option." Gary didn't know what to say. He began experimenting, not with breaking the loop, but with bending it. He gave away food. He helped strangers. He cleaned graffiti. He sat with the lonely. He listened. The loop didn't break, but something inside him did. One day he returned to Mr. Cole's mansion, not to beg, but to confront. Mr. Cole looked amused. "Come to renegotiate." "No," Gary said. "I came to thank you." Mr. Cole raised an eyebrow. "That's new." "You gave me time. You gave me clarity. You gave me a purpose." Mr. Cole leaned back. "And what will you do with it?" Gary smiled. "Make a choice." Chapter 7. The Final Day. The 7th year arrived like a whisper. Gary woke up and felt it in his bones. The air was different. The sky had a weight to it. The loop was ending. He walked to the store, bought the ticket, passed the old woman, stopped. He knelt beside her and held out the unscratched ticket. "I hope this helps," he said. She looked at him, eyes shimmering. "You finally chose." Gary nodded. "I don't want the money. I want the moment." She took the ticket gently. Then she removed her shawl. White wings unfurled from her back, radiant and majestic. The kittens meowed in harmony. A beam of light descended from the sky. "Let's go, kids," she said, "before St. Peter stops serving dinner." They vanished. Gary stood alone, looking heavenward. The day did not reset. Chapter 8. Redemption. Gary woke up the next morning and everything was different. The sky was new. The people were new. The world had moved forward. His apartment was still in foreclosure. His bank account still empty. But he felt rich. He never bought another ticket. He got a job at a homeless shelter. He volunteered at an animal clinic. He wrote a book about his experience. Fiction, of course. No one would believe the truth. He lived simply and fully. Epilogue. The Devil's Story Time. On a distant planet, Mr. Cole stood before a crowd of alien pranksters, swirling a glass of silver liquid. And then, he said, the human gave the ticket away to an angel. Gasps, laughter, applause. You didn't get the soul, one asked. No, Mr. Cole said, but I got something better. What's that? A story worth telling. The end. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, please hit the bell icon for notifications. Thank you.